The mid-year budget hits Parliament. Coming up, find out what is on the rise and how it impacts your pockets.
And we're following a developing story who now know could be giving BTC cellular competition. Find out first, coming up.
And in sports, high school students go after track supremacy. The Bahamas tonight. The National Report starts now.
In HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Government says finances are progressing as the mid-year budget is presented to Parliament today. Good evening, everyone. I'm Charisma Robinson.
And I'm Clint Watson. Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Right Honorable Perry Christie, outlined the financial improvements and made note that revenue is going up for the country. And as Janae Noel Ferguson tells us tonight, he said the government has met its initial commitment to reduce the deficit and increase revenue as a percentage of GDP.
We have turned the corner, and that significantly stronger growth and job prospects are now realistically in the offing.
A positive outlook on the country's finances communicated in Parliament by Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie, who delivered the mid-year budget. Mr. Christie, who's also the country's Minister of Finance, touted the government's success in chipping away at the national debt and significant strides in revenue collection.
With recurrent expenditures at $889 million, or 48.7% of the full-year budget estimate. Recurrent revenues at $689 million, or 38.9% of the forecast. And capital expenditure at $135 million, or 40.7% of the budgeted amount. The GFS deficit for the first half of the fiscal year is therefore provisionally estimated at $273 million, or 95% of the 2014-15 target.
Now, the nation's leader also noting that the government has exercised prudent expenditure control. And then there's VAT. Prime Minister Perry Christie says, despite the noise in the market, there's been a smooth rollout of the new tax, and businesses that have registered have exceeded the government's expectation.
That VAT, with respect to it being a tax in the country, is going to be a major success story for the people of the Bahamas. Believe me, Mr. Speaker, when I say that.
Moving forward, the Prime Minister pointed out that a lot of the country's financial success and reducing the unemployment figures will depend on the opening of Bahamar, slated for late March, and other properties in the Family Islands.
It is both in the short and long term going to be a major boost for the employment of our people, especially our young people. We are talking here, Mr. Speaker, not about hundreds of jobs, but about thousands of new jobs for, Mr. Speaker, Bahamians. We expect to see a surge in new hires starting in earnest very soon.
Most noteworthy, the Prime Minister said, is the IMF's forecast that stronger growth and job prospects in the country are achievable.
Forecast, which, while still conservative in my estimation, shows that real output in our economy is expected to be over $600 million larger in 2017 than it was in 2012.
Debate on the mid-year budget begins on Monday. Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Meantime, Shadow Minister for Finance Peter Turnquest says critical issues that Bahamians are facing are not getting the right attention.
In fact, he said the government simply presented projections in terms of creating new job opportunities for Bahamians, as well as methods for decreasing the unemployment line and presenting a true picture of Bahamar's impact.
We heard a lot of things about perspective, and the Prime Minister was very clear to use the word prospective and potential developments. But, you know, most of us cannot take perspective and potential to the bank to pay our mortgages. And so we wait to see the realization of some of these other things that he's talking about. But other than that, I don't know that the Bahamian people out there who are unemployed, and these are real people, these aren't percentages or just numbers, these are real people trying to feed their families. I don't believe that they are any more encouraged this afternoon than they were this morning with respect to what the Prime Minister has said, because we've heard it all before. We need results.
A top executive at the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employees Confederation says they'll be closely monitoring the mid-year budget debate now that Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Right Honorable Perry Christie, made his contribution. In fact, Chamber CEO Edison Sumner says they're glad to see the government embracing public and private sector partnership. That move, he believes, will assist in the country's economic growth and development.
We, of course, are interested in seeing the budget itself when it's presented later in the year to see how the funds that have been allocated are being apportioned. We're also interested in seeing the Prime Minister's disclosure that the VAT rollout is going to his satisfaction and based on the planned rollouts that we had projected or that they had projected. So we're looking at that as well, because it's important for us, especially from the VAT rollout side, to ensure that the things that the government said they would do, that they are going to be following through. That the funds that they raised are going to be applied as they had projected.
On to another big story tonight. Applications for a new cellular company cut off today. All companies interested in entering the telecommunications market had until today to submit their requests for proposals to operate a cellular mobile network and mobile services in the Bahamas. Prime Minister Perry Christie said that if all goes well, he hopes to announce a new wireless service provider as early as May. He noted that in November last year, interested persons were invited to register and submit proposals to participate in a selection process that would result in the award of the relevant licenses to the successful applicant.
1, have the technical and financial capability to meet the obligations of licenses to be awarded. 2, be committed to having the widest base, Mr. Speaker, and I ask members to pay a close attention to this because this demonstrates who we are. 2, be committed to having the widest base of Bahamians participating in the ownership of the new company. Yes. The requirements for there to be broad Bahamian ownership of the new company, Mr. Speaker, is yet another testament of my government's commitment to ensuring that all Bahamians benefit from the economic fruits of the country and not just a select few and privileged few.
The Prime Minister also said the selection process will be conducted in 2 phases, where a duly appointed evaluation committee will assess the technical and financial stability of the proposals.
Those applicants that are deemed to be suitably qualified in phase 1 will progress to phase 2, in which an auction of the cellular mobile spectrum will be administered by IRCA on the government's behalf. The successful applicant will be the one with the highest combined score of the scores derived in phase 1 and phase 2. Mr. Speaker, since the process was launched in November, the government appointed an evaluation committee that will conduct the phase 1 assessment. The committee consists of members of the Cellular Liberalization Task Force, in addition to persons whose expertise is considered valuable given their professional experience and the scope and nature of the exercise.
And this just in, we now know the applicants for the next wireless service provider in the country. Digicel Bahamas, Cable Bahamas, and Virgin Mobile Bahamas were the only 3 companies that submitted a request for proposal. The government also stated its intention to conduct a competitive selection process, which would result in the authorization of a second cellular mobile operator. Now, interested persons were required to register for a RFP package in order to participate in the selection process. 9 entities, both local and international, registered for an RFP package. We will continue, of course, to follow this developing story for you.
Opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis said he is also concerned about Bahamian ownership, which he strongly believes the nation's leader is not serious about.
The Prime Minister should have made some statement about what will happen to the 9% that was left at BTC for the Bahamians. When would he allow the 9% to be given or sold to the Bahamian? That is Bahamian ownership, and that is Bahamian empowerment. He has an opportunity to do it. We don't want to hear him continuously talk about it. Let's see action.
Some more breaking news tonight. Free National Movement leader Dr. Hubert Minnis named a new senator, according to a press statement released by the FNM. Attorney at law and current Assistant Secretary General of the FNM, Lanisha T. Roll, will fill the vacant spot in January by former marathon candidate Heather Hunt. Senator-designate Roll is a former police officer and a married mother of 3. No word when Roll will be sworn in.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.